I want to know, were there any underage girls at that party or at any party that Trump attended with Jeffrey Epstein?
77 seconds. That's how long Pam Bondi, former Florida Attorney General, former federal prosecutor, and Donald Trump's nominee for Attorney General of the United States, sat in complete, visible, uncomfortable silence before responding to a single question from Congressman Ted Lieu. Not a trick question, not a legal technicality buried in footnotes, a direct, human question, and she had nothing. What happened in that hearing room that day wasn't just political theater. It was a masterclass in what happens when a well-prepared questioner meets a witness who thought no one had done their homework. Someone had done their homework. To understand why those 77 seconds hit so hard, you need to understand what happened in the hours before Lieu ever stood up. Bondi had been seated at the witness table since morning. Senator after senator had asked her about the Epstein files, a topic that had been hanging over the confirmation process like a storm cloud that refused to move. And Bondi had handled it the same way every single time. I only reviewed summaries. I didn't have full access to the complete files. I don't recall having detailed knowledge of those particular records. I was working from high-level summaries, not the underlying documents. It was a consistent, rehearsed, carefully maintained position, and it seemed to be working. Senator after senator asked a version of the same question, got a version of the same answer, and moved on. The morning wore on. The afternoon began. Bondi looked relaxed, or at least as relaxed as anyone can look under hours of congressional questioning. She had survived the morning. She had survived lunch. She was managing it. Then Ted Lieu walked to the microphone. Lieu is not someone who grandstands for the cameras. He's methodical, precise. He spent a decade working in military courts, and that background shapes the way he approaches a cross-examination. He doesn't bury witnesses under mountains of documents. He doesn't wave stacks of paper around to look impressive. He brings exactly what he needs, no more. When Lieu approached the podium, he had a thin folder with him. Bondi saw it. Thin folder. Not much there. She had handled thick folders all day. A thin one shouldn't be a problem. That was her first mistake. Lieu didn't go straight for the attack. He started with confirmation. He wanted Bondi's position on the record one final time, cleanly, before he dismantled it. He asked her to confirm what she had told her colleagues all morning. Had she said she only reviewed summaries? Had she said she didn't have full access to the Epstein files? Had she said she lacked detailed knowledge of the invitation records and witness statements? Bondi confirmed all of it. Relaxed. Comfortable. Yes, that's what she had said. That was her position. Lieu nodded. He opened the folder. He removed a single document. What he placed on the table wasn't dramatic looking. It was a standard government access record, the kind of document that agencies generate automatically, without anyone thinking much about it, every single time someone logs into a restricted system. Date: March 14, 2016. Office: Florida Attorney General. Requesting official: Pam Bondi. File accessed: Epstein Investigation Master File. Authorization level: full access. Status: approved. Lieu let the room absorb that for a moment. Then he kept going. He pointed out that between 2011 and 2019, Bondi had submitted exactly 8 requests to access FBI master files. 8, over 8 years. That's 1 per year, and each one represented a case significant enough to warrant that level of access. This wasn't a routine clerical request. These were rare, deliberate decisions to go directly to the source material on the most sensitive investigations. The Epstein file was one of those 8. And then Lieu read the activity log. The record of exactly what Bondi had done during her 2 hours and 47 minutes inside that file. Page 1. General summary. Time spent, 12 minutes. Page 2. Complete name list. Time spent, 47 minutes. Page 3. Invitation records and witness statements. Time spent, 34 minutes. Page 4. Trump-Epstein connection timeline. Time spent, 28 minutes. Page 5. Evidence summaries. Time spent, 46 minutes. 2 hours, 47 minutes, 5 pages. Every major section of the file. Lieu looked up from the document and directly at Bondi. You told multiple members of this committee today that you only saw summaries, that you didn't have full access, that you didn't have detailed knowledge of the invitation records. The FBI access log says otherwise. And then came the moment everything had been building toward. Lieu set his phone face up on the table. Stopwatch app. 0 on the clock. He looked at Bondi and told her he was going to ask a very simple question. He wanted a simple answer, yes or no. Donald Trump attended multiple events connected to Jeffrey Epstein. Were there underage victims present at those events? He pressed start on the stopwatch. The first few seconds felt normal. Witnesses paused before answering difficult questions. That's expected. But 5 seconds passed, then 10. Bondi's mouth opened slightly, no words. Her eyes moved. Not to Lieu, not to the camera, but to her legal counsel seated nearby. Her lawyer looked back at her. Even the lawyer appeared caught off guard. This question had come from a different direction than anything they had prepared for. Her lawyer whispered something. Bondi still didn't speak into the microphone. 15 seconds. 20. The journalists in the room had been typing steadily all day, the constant, quiet percussion of keyboards filling the background of the hearing. That sound stopped. People were just watching now. 25 seconds. 30. The committee chairman attempted to intervene, perhaps sensing that something unprecedented was unfolding in front of him. Lieu raised a hand without even turning around. Just a calm, quiet gesture. "I'm waiting. I asked a question." 35 seconds. Bondi leaned slightly toward the microphone. It looked for a moment like words were about to come. They didn't. She pulled back. Her hands, folded on the table, tightened slightly. Thumbs pressed together, a physical tell that she was not nearly as composed as she was trying to appear. 40 seconds. Lieu stood with his arms crossed. He wasn't performing patience. He simply had it. 10 years in military courtrooms will do that to you. He had watched people sit in that silence before. He knew what it meant. He knew what it was doing. 45 seconds. A few journalists glanced at each other. 50 seconds. Bondi reached for the water glass in front of her. Her hand was visibly unsteady. A small amount of water spilled onto the table as she lifted the glass. No one moved to help. No one said anything. 55 seconds. 1 minute. At that point, the silence had become a story in itself. CNN put a chyron on screen. MSNBC anchors were counting aloud. Even Fox News, not typically inclined to highlight moments like this, acknowledged it as one of the longest silences in recent congressional hearing history. 1 minute, 5 seconds. Bondi tried again. Her voice came out uneven. "Congressman, this is complicated." Lieu didn't hesitate. "No, it isn't. Yes or no? Which one?" Silence again. 1 minute, 10 seconds. 1 minute, 15. 1 minute, 17 seconds. 77 seconds total from the moment the question was asked. Bondi finally answered. Barely audible, her voice reduced to almost a whisper. "Congressman, that information, the invitation records are complicated." Lieu stopped the stopwatch. 77 seconds. Recorded. And there is still no answer. Let's be completely clear about what Bondi was facing in those 77 seconds. Because it wasn't just nervousness. It was a logical trap with no exit. If she said no, there were no underage victims at those events. She would be directly contradicting witness statements she had spent 34 minutes reading. Documented. Logged. Provable. That's a lie under oath. If she said yes, there were underage victims present at events Trump attended, she would be making one of the most explosive statements in the history of a confirmation hearing, implicating the sitting president in a connection to child abuse. If she said "I don't know," she had just been shown, in front of the entire committee, that she had spent 34 minutes specifically reading the invitation records and witness statements from that investigation. She couldn't credibly claim ignorance of documents she had demonstrably reviewed. There was no fourth option. Every path led somewhere she couldn't go. So she chose none of them. She chose silence. And in doing so, she answered the question more completely than any of the three options ever could have. After the silence, Lieu wasn't finished. He pulled out another document and did something methodical and devastating. He read Bondi a numbered list of the false statements she had made that day, matched against the specific time she made them, the specific senators she made them to, and the specific FBI records that contradicted each one. Lie 1. 9:23 in the morning, to Senator Kennedy. "I have no knowledge of the Trump-Epstein invitations. The FBI log shows 34 minutes on invitation records and 28 minutes on the Trump-Epstein timeline." Lie 2. 10:47 in the morning, to Senator Whitehouse. "I did not have access to the invitation details." Page 3 of the file. Invitation records and witness statements. 34 minutes. Full access. Lie 3. 12:15 in the afternoon, to Senator Coons. "I don't know the witness statements." The witness statements were on the same page as the invitation records, the page she had read for 34 minutes. Lie 4. 2:34 in the afternoon, to Senator Schiff. "I did not see the details of the Trump-Epstein connection." Page 4. Trump-Epstein chronology. 28 minutes. 4 senators. 4 lies. 5 hours apart. All about the same subject. All disproven by the same access log. A document that had been sitting in an FBI database the entire time, waiting for someone to request it. Lieu looked at Bondi quietly for a moment before delivering the final piece. "You swore an oath before this testimony began. You promised to tell the truth. The record shows 4 separate violations of that oath to 4 separate members of this committee across the span of a single day. That constitutes perjury. That is a federal crime. It carries up to 5 years in federal prison." He closed the folder. "I have no further questions." 77 seconds of silence is enough. 4 lies are in the record. The FBI access logs are in the record. Everything is documented. He sat down. Bondi sat with her head down. The room was quiet in a different way now. Not the stunned silence of watching something happen, but the settled quiet of something being over. Because in a way, it was. The 77 seconds weren't just an awkward pause. They were a confession, not of guilt in a legal sense, but of knowledge, of awareness, of the impossibility of answering honestly without consequences that Bondi wasn't willing to face in that room. She had read those files. She knew what the witnesses said. She had spent nearly 3 hours inside a document that detailed one of the most significant criminal investigations in recent American history. An investigation with direct connections to powerful people, including the man who had nominated her for the highest law enforcement position in the country. And for the entire day, she had told senator after senator that she knew nothing, that she had only seen summaries, that she didn't have access to the details. 77 seconds of silence said what her words spent the whole day trying to hide. Lieu had walked in with a thin folder and walked out having changed the entire shape of the hearing. Not through theatrics, not through shouting, through records, through logs, through the simple, stubborn fact that every time someone accesses a federal database, the system writes it down. Pam Bondi forgot about the records. Ted Lieu didn't. Subscribe and turn on notifications. This story is still developing, and there's a lot more to come.